tried to have a boundary with social media where I'm not on it anymore. And at the same time, when I stick with that belief and that boundary, I lose connection with all these people. But at the same time, I don't want the corporations to be part of the gestalt. So
yeah, Mukunda has known for some time that I have the same struggle with this social media battle. I don't go on as much. And even recently, haven't gotten to the point where you have, where I just log out completely or shut the accounts down just yet, because I struggle with the same thing in terms of there are a lot of people that I went to school with or in my past that I really would like to, keep in touch with. So, and I shut off all the notifications on my phone. So it's not constantly dinging at me when posts go up by other people. And so it's less screen time and a lot more being present in life and not scrolling or just, doing these mindless things on there. So,
trying to re-engage with the world and leave that, it becomes a big challenge. I realized that for me, being shut down and isolated at home was kind of a luxury, and my inner isolationist kind of was like, oh, this is great. Now I have to go and re-engage with the world. But social media is like this, it keeps drawing you back. Oh no, you really don't have to. You can just text, or you can do a FaceTime. Or I think for a lot of people, it's become a huge challenge of how to re-engage with the world. And this is just kind of a little snippet of what I think the challenge of technology in general is to the human race, is how do we use it effectively and constructively rather than destructively, which is kind of what it's become, this horrible place of disinformation and anger and just just negative energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like what I sense from this, and kind of how I want to guide some of our discussion with this topic, is this idea that we're longing for community and for connection, and even we're longing for finding out information about the world.
So it's very, I guess there's several different ways to take social media, but when the whole pandemic shut down and, there was a mass isolation, I was a little bit more excited. So I kind of had an opposite reaction. I got to get more in touch with some of my family members and learn a little bit more about their daily lives when I would not have otherwise. So the way that I've always used my social media is kind of a way of reconnecting to people that I haven't connected. And honestly, I didn't have all of these accounts before the pandemic. Like, I didn't use them. I didn't do anything with it. But now, like, fast forwarding here, I have a friend all the way on the other side of the country that I've never even met, that I would have never been able to understand that there's someone who thinks exactly like me. And then there's nothing wrong with the way that I'm thinking.
Yeah, for me, social media, I think it's a blessing for me, the way I see it, because I'm now communicating with you because of social media. I managed to do my 200-hour because of social media. And I attend your classes because of social media. And I advertise to look for my customers on social media. So for me, social media is a blessing. Maybe it depends on how you use it. I found out about integral yoga on social media. So everything for me is coming from social media. So I don't wish or think to avoid it.
Good.
Because it's connecting and makes the world a global village.
For a lot of people, social media is a blessing. So for those people, I hope that the companies that run these platforms, I hope they get some kind of wake up call and pull things together, because like Twitter's at risk of just going away. Maybe not a lot of people care about Twitter because it's a smaller platform, but it could go away.
I wonder if, like what Natasha said, there'll be, the balance. And so we're just in that uncomfortable period where it feels like it's swinging way far to one side, and it's hard to hang on, when it is in that place to feel like anything is ever going to be different or going to change. But can we be in a place where we do recognize that is the nature of life? We go through cycles. We go through the swinging of the pendulum far to one side, far to the other. And it's just going to be our human nature, because we're beings that seek comfort. It's all the way down to our cellular level. We're gonna hold on when it feels comfortable and pleasurable, and try to make that last forever. And then we're gonna scream and be upset and uncomfortable when it all goes away. And when we can start to see, like, oh, this is part of a cycle. What if I stayed in a place of clarity and as much grounding as I could and witnessed this movement? Could I make any better decisions?
For me, I always wonder, it may appear like, oh, he's acting like a child and doing something foolish, but I wonder what the underlying motivation is, and what is, because oftentimes we think about just the action that wealthy person did, but I almost think like, wait, what is 2 steps after? What is this person trying to get to? And the other thing is stirring the pot, because, of course, this is just an example. Every day there is an article. One day it says, oh, coffee is slow poison. The next day it says coffee is actually good for you. But the point is, even let's assume for a second that that article which says coffee is slow poison is true. This whole, like, the current events, I feel in the past, it may have been like, yes, it's uncomfortable, but we're kind of okay with status quo. But maybe sometimes stirring the pot is actually good, because that may be necessary to affect change.
Yeah, it's like setting those healthy boundaries, because it's not that we're all supposed to be at this same place of our work that we're doing and the evolution that we're doing. But I think it's helpful in these Empower Hours. What I really value is our individual experience, to learn to feel more trusting and honoring of that, and also to just educate ourselves, to where we might be holding on to a belief system, and maybe through the conversation we offer some ideas and thoughts for one another. So I'm going to shift back here to our slides for just another few moments. It's going to shift our direction just a bit. And I do want to just look at our Thanksgiving moment. And this was actually in history.com from this year, insider.com. Participants in National Day of Mourning, so that's the day after Thanksgiving, honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples to survive today. The commemorating plaque that this is from this article they were talking about. It says, it is a day of remembrance and spiritual connection, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. There are many people who get uncomfortable to read something like that statement because of the attachment to the previous version. It's like, oh, you're making me think, you're making me consider that all this nostalgia and sentiment I have is wrong.
But just to say, yeah, that happened in the past, and we can still acknowledge it, take accountability, just that's the land we're on. But like you said, taking the giving of thanks. And it doesn't have to be that, especially for white identifying people, to be like, no, you're the bad person. It's not that anymore. But I think there's so much fear associated with it. And maybe it's like also feel like tradition. No, wait, this is my holiday. Now you're telling me that I have to. And hopefully we can work to, cross that bridge and help people understand that it's not about that. It's not about holding people today responsible, but it's just like, yeah, acknowledging a fact that was of history, and yes, it was not pleasant, but how can we make peace with it?
So what can we do? And where's that resource that inspires something within us to say, oh, I can start to disengage from all the external things, pratyahara, disengage the physical, the senses, and start to tune into that frequency inside that has a higher band of intelligence, basically. But it awakens that humanity in us to say, oh, I can see the illusion of all this other stuff. I'm going to walk through that and attend and water and nurture the things that make sense, that actually are going to help uplift one another and help, maybe create that change we're all talking about.
And a lot of the nationalism is really just another way of saying we are the chosen ones.
Exactly.
It's that way of isolating and saying we're better than, which is what's always led to the most horrific events in mankind. Just horrible things because we think we're right and everybody else is wrong. And what changes is, as you've been saying, is our individual commitment to our own self and to the planet. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the election we just went through. The buildup to this election, everybody I met was so fearful and was projecting it was going to be so terrible and so horrible. And I kept saying the whole way along, I think it's going to be good because
the kind of the global, the macro scale of how we see all of this operating, and then the microcosm of each of us. And to be able to see our influence on one another by the messaging we do, by the choices that we make, by the continuing of habits that we do kind of mindlessly. Well, I guess we're just supposed to go and buy all these things at the supermarket. I'm just supposed to make this 50-pound turkey because I don't know, that's what you're supposed to do. But what if we said, I'm going to disrupt the way that this works? Because actually, not only is this whole ritual one that doesn't make sense, but it's actually not a healthy one on the level of my physical health, digestive health, mental health. And what if I do something that disrupts myself on that level, and then it maybe makes a ripple? And then
what keeps coming up every full moon, I was blessed to work at Tassajara, and we would chant with the Zens, all my ancient twisted karma from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, this now I avow, over and over. And I think that one of the gifts of having a lot of Shempa and struggle with social media, with politics, is I've seen my own shadow. I've seen how intense I can be, and I think if I dare, I could teach other people that we are shadow and light. We are complex. We're not all or nothing. We're not like woke versus anti-woke. It's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to regret what we've done to the Native Americans. It's not off the table because that's part of our experience. Somehow we've got to realize our projections and own them.
I just wanted to share something about let's say people are suffering, but are we able to stop suffering? I can see as if we cannot stop suffering, and people will continue to suffer, and one by one they will realize the enlightenment, the truth, and they will less their suffering. But as I teach and interact with people, and these days before my class we share stories, and people, they share their personal stories. They are going through a lot in life, most of them. And they, even if you tell them what to do, what you think, they are not ready to change. So I think that's our nature, and the stage is as I said, people are not on different stages of life. Some are a bit realized different stages. So I think we'll continue suffering, the governments, everything, but you cannot change the next person. You can only change yourself. That's what I think.
Mm. Thank you, Mercy. I love that you're letting your students share in that way. It's beautiful. I think you're having compassion for all of the different stages that people are at, rather than thinking, why aren't you doing more of this? And why aren't people doing that? But to just say, we all are on our own path. And that's where I feel like having some kind of a practice lets us all naturally unfold in our own way, rather than it should all match this way of thinking or this way of being. So anyway, I love those thoughts. Let me bring in Vitasha.
So I was actually on the same brainwave as Mercy. It's there's always truth. There's always more truth. There's always your truth and someone else's truth. There's a different side to every story. That's just the nature of our lives. Some things are hidden and some things are very apparent and very obvious. But if we want anything to change within ourselves or within our outside world, the first thing it seems like is that there has to be some sort of disruption. I'm not saying an angrily one or a violent one, but people don't just change because they're happy where they're at. There has to be some sort of push to say, hey, what you're currently doing is not the thing that is okay for you. Maybe you want more, then you should have more. But until you want more, you don't get more. So as much as and as great as it is, like I grew up living next to the Trail of Tears. So this truth has always been understanding that people died. Lots and lots of people were murdered in this country because someone else wanted their land. And so then that's something that I've always like lived with and understood. And it's never something that I picked up a book and read about. So I guess in the discussion today, I just say the only thing we can ever do is just spread what we know and say our own truths. And that's how we change the world. It's just being honest for once in any way that we can.
Wow. Thank you, Vitasha. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this. This definitely has been very inspiring for me, and I hope for each of you. I feel like I'd like to see if there's anybody that has any last thoughts that has been participating, and then if we have just 30 seconds or a minute of silence to just let this kind of soak in and to be with where we are. I see that Steve Rose raised his hand.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like, a person is free as soon as they believe they are free. So kind of back to like, it's kind of up to the individual. So we can all be free. It's every single individual can be free, but it's up to the individual it's funny, it's up to the individual to decide that.
There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of complications in our country with that too, because of rights that are, taken away or disrupted. But I think I've read that in a lot of spiritual texts that it does ultimately boil down to that. But I want to say that my part two of that is when we awaken that internal truth, I think it empowers us and maybe emblazons us to then say, okay, now I know what I need to do to help others. Instead of just what tends to happen and what our marketing and capitalist world wants us to do is to continue to self-soothe. A lot of spirituality has turned into this I just need to be comfortable. Oh, I can't handle this. Sometimes we do need to do that, yes. But is that our perpetual effort, is to try to be comfortable versus awaken. The last thing I just have to say is don't stop believing, hold on to the feeling. Street lights, people. Oh. All right, thank you
Don't
all.
get me started.
I know.